الحمد لله وكفى وسلام على عباده الذين اصطفى أما بعد. This segment of Manners 101 relates to the basic etiquette of loans, engaging in credit, and to some extent transactions in general. This is a topic that enough will never be said about. But we make a start by dedicating a few minutes to the topic, inshallah. In a famous hadith, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is reported to have said something to this effect. أدخل الله عز وجل رجلا كان سهلا مشتريا وبائعا وقاضيا ومقتضيا الجنة رواه النسائي. Allah will grant entry into Jannah a person who is lenient in their capacity as a purchaser, lenient in their capacity as a seller or vendor, lenient in their capacity as someone who has to settle monetary dues, and lenient in their capacity as a person who has to receive monetary dues. This particular hadith of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam demonstrates that if a person can be conscious, circumspect in any one of these four capacities, that individual can guarantee their place in Jannatul Firdaus. On the contrary, if an individual is not careful and not cautious in any one of these four capacities, then it is possible that the akhirah of that individual has been compromised. May Allah Ta'ala protect us and grant us the realization to act appropriately, either in our capacity as a purchaser, as a vendor, as someone who has to settle financial obligations, or receive financial and monetary dues. With that said, the etiquettes for today seem to be geared towards the debtor, and this is where most of the excesses tend to occur in my personal experience, and this is where a lesson needs to be derived. So while creditors do breach some of the basic etiquettes, by and large, most times it tends to be the debtor. Without casting aspersions and doubt on any of these two parties, the first etiquette that needs to be talked about is the importance of reviving this practice of settling more than is required. In any particular transaction, a loan, it is important and a mark of an individual's personality as a debtor that whenever a loan has to be settled, the individual goes beyond the basic amount that has to be settled. This will go a long way in demonstrating that in the heart and mind of the debtor, the relationship matters more than the actual financial obligation. The second etiquette, also related to the debtor, is the importance of including the creditor in one's dua. And this is important because the creditor, bear in mind, may have had other use for their resources. When they were approached for financial assistance, they graciously set aside their personal preference and opted to assist someone who approached them. So this is indeed a favor, and hence this calls for the creditor to be included in the dua of the debtor. This particular etiquette has the potential to attract barakah and blessings of Allah in that relationship between a debtor and a creditor. The third and final etiquette for today, and this is a broad etiquette in financial affairs, is as far as possible to refrain from bargaining with a vendor or a person who is hard pressed and undergoing difficulty, trying to make an honest living. That man on a street corner trying to sell tomatoes or potatoes for the day and to feed his family, as far as possible, those individuals who are more fortunate should refrain from this practice of bargaining with someone who is hard pressed. This is a practice which is discouraged in the Sunnah of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. There are specific and explicit ahadith in relation to a person who bargains with someone who is hard pressed and undergoing difficulty trying to make an honest living. in the days ahead, we are, Allah forbid, likely to see much more of this phenomenon, and this is why it needs to be highlighted that in our day-to-day affairs, we as individuals should try our level best to refrain from bargaining with anyone who is hard-pressed or undergoing some level of difficulty. May Allah Ta'ala inspire one and all to practice and adhere to these etiquettes and impart unto others. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين.